Thank everybody. I can see everyone's still connecting, but thank you all for joining. It's great to see lots of new and old faces here. Thank you for coming. And welcome to the Salo dialogue, which we're having in solidarity with Swaziland, because we know that the situation is becoming increasingly difficult. And our comrades from Swaziland are going to be updating and informing all of us here about what's happening and what our role as the regional solidarity movement could be, so that we could get a better understanding of the situation. So we have a really wonderful panel of speakers, of activists from Swaziland, and we are really looking forward to hearing from them. I'm Lily Manoim from SALO, Southern African Liaison Office, and my colleague Munjodzi Mutandiri is going to be chairing the meeting. So I'm going to be handing over to him, just to let you all know that, as usual, we ask everyone to stay muted, and you are welcome to write in the chat. And after this, the panelists have given their input, we're going to be opening up the floor for questions and engagement from all participants. So please all feel free to come in at that point. And we are looking forward to hearing from all of you. And I'm going to hand over to you, Munjodzi.
Thank you, Lily, for those remarks and some tech in-house clarity in terms of how we proceed. I want to also take this opportunity to welcome everyone to this particular dialogue. It feels like we haven't talked about Swaziland in a long time. And I think it's one of the issues. The issue of Swaziland is one of those that we should never tire to continuously talk about and to think outside the box, inside the box, about what to do to assist the comrades who are prosecuting the struggle for a democratic and open Swaziland. So we are excited today, not with the situation inside Swaziland, but we are excited that we are able to come together to yet again learn, for some of us who might not have engaged with the situation in the past few months, and learn what has been happening, any progress on some of the things that have been looking like they could happen. We all remember that in 2021, after the 29 of June massacre, SADC and the King committed to undertaking a dialogue process that we all at the time thought, if it were to happen, it would lead to some progress. We know that the political parties group, the MSF, the Multi-Stakeholders Forum, were quite optimistic that if dialogue was to happen, it could be the starting of a much more progressive response to the crisis in Swaziland, which is a long-standing crisis. But we saw very little of that happening. Unfortunately, we saw the massacre, the assassination of Comrade Thulani Maseko, and it was a shock to the world, to the rest of us in the solidarity movement. But around that assassination of Thulani, many other young comrades were also assassinated and killed, dumped in mountains, and many other things. We kept thinking that there could be a pathway, since SADC has committed to a dialogue process. We saw last year an election that's difficult to describe as an election, which surprisingly SADC had some positives to say about it. And that's just worrying, I think, to the solidarity movement in terms of what do we do in response to the situation in Swaziland. But also we saw this year the space continued to shrink. Many of our comrades continued to get out of Swaziland to go into exile for safety reasons. A lot of things don't look like we are about to reach a turning point in the democratic struggle for Swaziland. And so we wanted to bring comrades from Swaziland to update us, but also together to possibly during the discussion session, find ways of re-energizing each other on the struggle for democracy in Swaziland and say, what is it that we can do differently? The government of national unity in South Africa is here. Do we think that it could provide new avenues for action, new avenues for agitation, new avenues for changing policy position by the South African government and a desire to do more for the people of Swaziland and by extension, of course, the region. But we try to bring a regional perspective to some of these issues that we don't see the Swaziland struggle in isolation or the Swaziland crisis as a standalone, but that it feeds into a bigger context of what the region looks like and what can be done to advance and entrench democracy, not just in Swaziland, but across the region. Though today, of course, we want to focus on Swaziland, but we must never lose sight of the regional mandate that we all have to ensure that the citizens of this region live better and all that. So we have eloquent and people that are at the core face of this struggle. And to kickstart us is the president of Pudemo, who I know needs no introduction to this platform. Comrade President Mlungis Makanya will take us through his take on what's been happening in Swaziland since we last met or discussed the situation, but try to understand what is happening at the moment. I think we are also privileged that as the leader of Pudemo, you will take us into confidence in terms of how they are prosecuting the struggle, what they are doing to try and counter the many challenges they are facing as a movement, but also whether they believe that whatever plan they have on paper will yield results in the near future, an update on the dialogue situation from a political point of view. Are they engaging with Mswati? Are they talking with SADC? So, Comrade President, you have a free pass to speak about anything and everything that you think will be relevant and necessary to update comrades and take us a bit forward. Thank you.
Good morning, comrades, and good morning to everyone who's following us on the various platforms. Thank you very much, Comrade Majozi, and good morning to the fellow panelists and my comrades that we have been afforded the opportunity to reflect on our issue here this morning. I would like to take this opportunity on behalf of Pudemo to salute our people who have brought us to the point that we find ourselves at today. A point where we are even having a discussion around possibilities of a political transition in Swaziland, including a political dialogue. While this discussion at this stage is a discussion amongst ourselves, we don't take it for granted as Pudemo that we have arrived at this area as a result of the many struggles and sacrifices of our own people in trade union movements, in the student movement, in youth formation, civil society organizations, who have always believed in the possibilities of bringing about a democratic society. in our country. We accordingly salute the resilience of our masses who on a daily basis faces the brutality, arrest, torture, humiliation, etc. from a very, very evil and brutal regime. Notwithstanding all these things, they've never agreed to a situation where the pain of the moment will make them forego their dream for a free and democratic society. Why we celebrate this quantitative advance in our democratic struggle? We as Pudemo think that it is very important that we send this caution that we shouldn't lose sight of the strategic opportunity that it presents to us, including the opportunity to address audiences that maybe we were not able to address before. But we think that at all material times, we must not forget that what is unfolding in Swaziland is a political process that has at its core demands for democratization. We are engaged in a struggle where we demand democratization, not just of the political space. We are demanding democratization of the political and the economic space too. We are demanding democratization of the social spaces too, where the rights of women and children are going to occupy the epicenter of progress. We're involved in a struggle where cultural heritage and celebration of who we are is not going to be an exclusive and preserve of just one family. But I think it will be important, comrades, that notwithstanding the advances that we've made, particularly in the last 5 years, with the apex having been the June 2021 and beyond developments, that if we do not consolidate and if we do not properly locate what is obtaining, these advances could be easily reversed by this brutal regime. It is equally important also in our view as Pudemo that we locate what is happening in Swaziland in the context of what is happening in the region, in the continent, and globally. We do not take it for granted as Pudemo that the victory of our struggle is intricately linked to the advance of the democratic push in many of our countries, particularly in the region. It is for this reason that we are sincerely troubled by the brutality that we are seeing taking place in Zimbabwe, for instance, where comrades who had gathered peacefully to discuss and celebrate the qualitative lessons that were brought about June 16, 1976, continue to languish in prison in that country. We are equally mindful of the fact that the violent clampdown we witnessed in the past few days in Uganda only serves to strengthen autocratic regimes in the region and the continent, and thus giving Mswati confidence that he may be able to consolidate the pushback. So these experiences around the world are very instructive for us as we prosecute our struggle. But one felt that it would be important in a discussion such as the one we are having today, that we remind ourselves that we have been in these situations before. If one recalls in the early 90s, we had an era that we characterize as Pudemo as an era of the coming together of the democratic forces of change. In the 1990s, we together with the NNLC, the main and the trade union movement and the SFTU, led a process where we consolidated democratic forces under the then Swaziland Democratic Alliance, SDA. Under the SDA were brought in civil society formations, youth formations, student organizations, political parties, women, business, churches, human rights organizations, you name them, including the unemployed formation, under one movement. And we were able to record a significant push towards democratization. I'm saying this because even then, following that process, there were discussion of a political dialogue. So this discussion of a dialogue is not necessarily something that is new because of what happened in June 2021. And that's why we think it's important to reflect on these things, because at times some easily get carried away by these discussions and think that we're at the doorstep of a significant breakthrough. So we think that it is for this reason that all of us at least must find each other as to what is at the core of the struggle we're engaged in. Like one was saying earlier, the core of the struggle for democracy in Swaziland is the demand for the return of multi-party democracy. As Pudemo, we see and define this as a creation of a government based on the majority will, where there shall be an elected and an accountable government based on the will of the majority of the people, and where all eligible citizens shall have a right to vote and stand as candidates for elections without regard to race, color, sex, religion, and social status. But also we think that it will be a situation where all our people shall, through their representative organs, be able to influence and enjoy effective participation in the running of the country. We say this because we have no iota of doubt in our minds that there is consensus amongst our people in the country that the Dinkundla system has failed, but also that the Dinkundla system itself was a system that was imposed in 1978 by the late King Sobhuza, following the 12th April 1973 decree where he literally silenced the voices of our people, where he literally expropriated from the collective control of our people the land, economy, culture, and liberties. And he all placed these things under the control of one family. It is for this reason that, again, working with other of formation in the mass democratic movement, we used the era of 2000 to consolidate and build unity of purpose amongst democratic forces. Just to mention but a few of the things that we were able to do in the era of 2000 was to make sure that we play a critical role in uniting the trade union movement so that we've got one federation in the country to COSWA. From then, what was the Swaziland Federation of Labor, the Swaziland Federation of Trade Union, and even SNAT, that at the time was not affiliated to any trade union federation. But also we were able to establish the Swaziland United Democratic Front that brought together all democratic forces. We were also able to make sure that the Swaziland Coalition for Concerned Civic Organization, SCCCO, that ensured again that all civil society formations are under one roof. We revived the student movement. We made sure that our people establish, those who wish to do so, political parties that will only serve to reinforce the political parties that were already in existence. This was following the regime's attempts, which sadly succeeded, of dismantling what was started in the 1990s, as I mentioned, which was the Swaziland Democratic Alliance. We are mentioning all these things because we think that it is important that we recall all the developments in the respective eras in the prosecution of our struggle. I am mindful of time, so I would rush to talk about where are we now and what is unfolding at the moment. We think that following the uprising of June 29, 2021, and the events that followed thereafter, the regime, having smelled defeat, went to quickly organize itself and anchoring its reorganization on the strength of the security forces. It also imported security expertise that it didn't have and literally brought into our soil foreign mercenaries who, amongst the ghastly deeds they committed, was the cold-blooded assassination of the then chairperson of the Multi-Stakeholder Forum, Comrade Thulane Maseko. It did not only end with assassinating Comrade Thulane, but it made sure that it made the life of Comrade Daniel and the kids unbearable, to a point where it was unimaginable that they could be able to still lead a normal life in Swaziland. But also a number of Swazis were killed at the hands of these security forces, including the illegal kidnapping of our comrades from foreign soil, smuggled back to Swaziland, and the arbitrary arrest of many comrades who continue to languish in prison. This was over and above the ridiculous arrest, persecution, and recently lengthy jail term sentence of 2 of the members of parliament who had been vocal in supporting the struggles of our people. What we have done and we continue to do is to write and engage those in SADC, in the African Union, and in other multilateral bodies, reminding them about the resolutions that they took, but also warning them about the implication of what is likely to happen if they continue to ignore the plight of the suffering people of Swaziland. Just yesterday, we saw 3 young activists who were accused of burning a flag and a police van being denied bail because the government had decided that they were not going to charge them under common law offenses, notwithstanding the fact that what they are accused of having done is catered for under the offenses that are covered by the things that I've just referred to. Instead, they decided to drag them to the Suppression of Terrorism Act, fully knowing that the bar gets not only to be high to get bail if they are charged with STA, but also that the courts have been weaponized and given strict instruction by the king never to admit anyone charged under STA to bail. We're talking about young activists here, 2 of them who are in universities, who are now facing a perilous future because this regime wants to send a strong lesson to anyone who would be and activists what will befall them. We have said then as Pudem, having studied all the happenings, it is apparent that we are on our own. It is clear that notwithstanding the goodwill of the majority of citizens in the region, the continent, and the world, those who are in charge of governments in those jurisdictions, unfortunately, do not see our issue as an emergency that requires prompt attention. We have therefore resolved that we are going to use the month of October to bring an unprecedented mass defiance under what we have termed the Week of Rage, where we are working very hard, sparing no effort, energy, nor resource in making sure that we bring about something even bigger, more organized, and better coordinated than what we saw in June 2021. We're doing this because we realize that indeed power concedes nothing without demand, that the only time SADC pays attention to what we are going through and subjected to, it is when the country sadly is on fire. This has not been an easy decision that we have arrived at, particularly because we know that the regime has demonstrated in June 2021 and beyond that it would not hesitate to use lethal force against what it perceived as threats. But we think that our burning desire to be free, our burning desire to see justice for our assassinated comrades, our burning desire to make sure that those who continue to languish in prison, facing no prospects of an independent and impartial hearing, are heavily looking and dependent upon us who are still outside to do all we can and employ all necessary measures within our abilities to make sure that we bring about change. So all that we can say here is, if the region thought June 2021 was scary, we are unfortunate informing them that we think that we are headed even for more scarier situation. Our people cannot continue to be the outcasts of the region, where all other residents of our region enjoy meaningful elections where they are able to change governments, and we remain the only ones who will be perpetual children under the trusteeship of a monarch who controls all facets of our lives. We have said we want to be the fireworks of the future children. We do not want them to go through what our parents and what we ourselves are going through, by making sure that through our own sacrifices, we can guarantee a better future for them. I end by reminding this esteemed forum that, true to form, SADC has decided to relegate the issue of Swaziland into a non-issue. And this was not the first time that we had engaged SADC, and it's not our first experience. For the last 40 years of our existence as an organization, we've always strived to peacefully bring to the attention of the leadership of the region the gross human rights violations that are taking place in Swaziland. So one end by encouraging all our people in Swaziland to participate meaningfully and decisively in the upcoming activities as we march confidently towards the Week of Rage in October. we correspondingly appeal to all freedom, democracy, and peace-loving people of the region, the continent, and the world to extend support to this noble cause, because we believe that the cause that we are fighting for is just and noble. Thank you very much for the opportunity, Comrade Machozi.
Thank you, Comrade President. I think very important to take us through the history of the struggle for democracy in Swaziland, but also more importantly, to put us in your confidence in terms of what the organization is working on. I think it helps inform the solidarity movement in terms of how they can support the struggle for democracy in Swaziland. I think very important. I think we'll continue to engage with you as we go in terms of hearing how things are shaping up, but also just seeing how the region can be of support. There was a time when the region would descend to the Oshek border to try and support through protests, demonstrations, and all those things. Hopefully, the yearning for freedom for the people of Swaziland can inspire once more and drive, give energy to those of us that are outside Swaziland to demand, not just from SADC, but from our governments to push and take seriously the issue of Swaziland. Thank you, President. I know that we are running out of time. I wanted the President to really put some of the issues he has put, so I gave him as much time as possible. I know that I can always count on the other speakers. I can abuse Comrade Mary to cut input. I can talk to Kebile to be brief. So I want to move to the second speaker, who is Kebile Dlamini. She is with the Rural Women's Assembly in Swaziland. And we know that in all the challenges society faces, most of the time, women and young girls bear the brunt of those challenges. And it would be important as we discuss the future to really hear from women voices, because that's how we build better communities. So Kebile, please come in, give us your views as the Rural Women's Assembly on how you have been seeing developments in Swaziland, what you guys have been up to, your fears, your concerns, and also how we can be of help from the solidarity movement. Comrade Kebile, please do come in.
Greetings, everyone. Thank you, Comrade Machozi. I think you can hear me. Am I audible enough?
You are very audible.
Okay, thank you. Maybe I won't open up maybe let me open up for a minute because of network so that people can see me, but I will close it very soon. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, President, for giving a lengthy history of where we are coming from as the people of Swaziland. And maybe first of all, I'm Kebile Dlamini from the Rural Women Assembly. And I would like to appreciate this platform that SALO has provided for us so that the world can hear our plight as the Swazi people. Just a small introduction about Rural Women. It's a women's assembly, social justice movement that was formed in 2011, which focuses on women's rights and injustices that are happening in the country. We are in the 4 regions of Swaziland, and we work under 6 pillars, which are organizing and mobilizing, capacity building and education, economic empowerment, institutional development, lobbying and advocacy, and also we talk about environmental and climate justice issues. I just want to get into the solidarity issue where this platform is providing for us, especially the impact of the judgment that we have seen regarding these two MPs who have been imprisoned for a long time. The recent judgment and imprisonment of the members of parliament, Baketeni Mthandeni, has stirred significant concern and condemnation from various human rights organizations. As rural women, we rebuke such barbaric judgment, and it's a shame that it has been delivered by a woman. We know that before they were incarcerated, both MPs were playing a critical role in their communities in helping vulnerable children. Both Mabuza and Dube have families they have left behind who are now suffering under this situation, as these MPs were breadwinners and responsible providers. I think Comrade Mjosi touched it very well to say all the challenges that society faces, but the brunt is really on women. So this is what we are seeing here in Swaziland now. There are a lot of families who are being assisted by Mr. Mabuza, whom today are unable to cope with life. Before they were incarcerated, we went to their constituencies. There was a loud cry. We have even seen some old women going to the courts to support these MPs because they were their breadwinners also. As women, we are really facing these challenges, and a lot of women who were being employed by him are now without jobs, adding to the already escalating unemployment rate in the country. This is our children. We have lost some jobs in Mr. Mabuza's companies, and now we are with them at home, and they are already adding the burden to women who are forced to make sure that the children's well-being is fully taken care of. That's the situation we are in, comrade. We are seeing a lot of ascending crime. The crime rate is coming up very high. These are the result of a regime that is not taking care of its people. There is a lot that is happening in our country. I think the other speakers will allude to. For the rural women, we are happy with this platform, and we want to call upon our local organizations that is on the issue of solidarity. We want to call on the local organization to physically and practically support these women and families, as we know that even some of their children, they are going to school. Just imagine a child, then a sentence of her father comes out, and she can be discriminated even at school from the other children. So we are calling solidarity to our local organization to come forth and really support these women and the children. We are also calling upon local mental health care organizations to support them so that they can adjust and cope in life. Our call also to the international community. We appreciate such forum, and the solidarity that they are giving us needs to be strengthened. We feel like the international community need to do more and open up such platforms so that the struggle of the Swazi people can be heard. We also call maybe on the other members of parliament who are in other countries to raise their voices against such injustices and oppression against these MPs. And also call for their immediate release, as we believe that They are innocent because they were talking on behalf of the Swazi people. That is our call and plea to other MPs outside the region. We demand and also call the UN and the SADC bodies to call upon the Swazi government to release these MPs and all political activists in Swaziland. The Swazis are thirsty for democracy. We want democracy. We know that as women, we will be free when we have our democracy, we attain our democracy. Not now where we are being followed, our right to expression is being denied. So we want to call upon all UN and SADC bodies to just call the Swazi government to release these MPs. Thank you so much, Comrade Mchosi. That was my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Comrade Tobile, and all the best in the work you are doing with the Rural Women's Assembly. I think it is important and quite crucial that women continue to be organized and to be a part of the future of Swaziland in terms of shaping with ideas, because as you talk, it is quite clear that you hold a very important voice in the resolution of the crisis, and I wish you all the best in continuously recruiting, organizing, and mobilizing mothers, young girls into the struggle for democracy. And I think you know that you can call on us at any point. I think you raised some very important points that would inform. I see a lot of comrades here who have worked hand in hand with many others in providing and strengthening the people-to-people solidarity with the people of Swaziland. I see Comrade Vanesha, I see comrades from Kosatu, I see Bishop Paul Vereni, and many others that I've not named here. Mom Miriam is here. So it's really a call that you, and a challenge that you give to the solidarity movement, that the practical people-to-people solidarity issues that we can begin to feed on, issues of small things like food for children of those that have been incarcerated, and those that have lost their loved ones at the hands of King Mswati. So it's important to be reminded, and I knew that it could only come from the Rural Women's Assembly, to be reminded of the importance of people-to-people solidarity, that beyond countries, we are connected by much bigger than our boundaries. Thank you for that. I think the cause have been noted, and we'll find platforms to amplify them. The call to SADC, the AU, and other important organs that are supposed to guarantee peace and stability in countries. And I think that, apologies for that, I think that it is really important that we begin to, from outside, channel our energies towards that. There is a SADC summit in Harare in 2-3 weeks' time. The SADC the People's Summit will be happening on the sidelines. If the police finally clear that, what will be our message on Swaziland? And I think this dialogue comes at a timely time, and the issues that you've put on the table are quite critical. I want to quickly move to the next speaker. We know that young people who, like anywhere else, we are seeing in Kenya in the last few weeks, the role that young people have been playing in agitating for their views, their voices, their concerns to be respected and to be heard. And we know that in Swaziland, many young people have died at the hands of the king. Many young people have been in jails of the regime. Many more young people have been beaten and tortured. And the next speaker is one who has been a guest of the king's presence and his brutality many a time. And we wanted to take this opportunity to hear the young people's voices on the situation again, but also more importantly, a focus on the MPs that have been given a combined total of 68 years among them in prison by the King's courts. And Comrade Kolani is the former president of the Swaziland National Union of Students, but a youth leader within Swaziland. Comrade President, I want you to come in and give us your views, your remarks, your asks from this platform, and many others who are not in this platform who get the message.
Thank you so much, comrade. I hope I'm audible enough.
You are clear, President, and you have about 5 minutes to 7.
Yes, thank you, comrade Njos. And for the purposes of maintaining my network, comrade, I won't start the video, because once I start the video, it affects my network.
That's okay, President. That's okay. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you so much, my leader, for the opportunity, and all comrades who are here in this great platform for hearing the Swazi story and the plight that is facing our people here in Swaziland. So when it comes to the issue of, I'll just be brief first. When it comes to the issue of the MPs, comrade Njozi, we've always been present in court, and I work as a freelance journalist part-time. So we've been covering the issue of the MPs while they've been appearing in court. So, Baqede Mabuza and Mthandeni Dube, the Eswatini pro-democracy members of parliament, have been collectively sentenced for 68 years in prison recently for demanding democratic reforms. The MPs were sentenced by royal-linked judgments on Monday afternoon, on the 15th of July, and they were sentenced merely for demanding democratic reforms. As the president stated earlier, that Eswatini is ruled by Mswati as an absolute monarch. Political parties are banned from participating in elections, while human rights defenders, political activists, and pro-democracy MPs are arrested, convicted, tortured, or even killed for demanding democracy. So Judge Mamsi is not a prominent judge, as the president stated earlier. The courts in Swaziland, they're used as a weapon to break the spirit of those who are calling for democracy. So there's one shocking thing, that before the judge issued the sentencing, he uttered such words that the two MPs, they deserve a death sentence. So finally, on that very day, Baqede Mabuza and Mthandeni Dube, they were sentenced to collectively 68 years in prison. So the issue that has been happening here in Swaziland is that the parliament has no power. The parliament, each and every time the king has delivered the speech, this is not like in countries like in South Africa, where the speech of the head of state will be debated. Here in Swaziland, the MPs they deliver gifts in thanking the speech of the king. The speech of the king is never criticized. Whoever will criticize the speech of the king will face the same consequences that have befell the likes of Comrade Baqede and Comrade Mthandeni. So those who are suffering under this evil regime of King Mswati III, as we know that the majority of our people here in Swaziland, it is the young people. Our young people are denied scholarship after graduating from universities. They find themselves unemployed. So, and as the president stated earlier, yesterday we had 3 young people who were denied bail, meaning that their future has been thrown out of the window just like that. So young Swazis continue to languish in poverty and cannot afford to access health, education, food, clothes. Our young Swazis are forced into engaging in criminal activities just so that they can go to sleep having taken at least a meal. Our young Swazis continue to be jobless. Our young Swazis continue to lose hope on life and commit suicide. Our young Swazis continue to stay behind shops and starve the whole day while their health deteriorates. Our young Swazis continue to be discriminated on the basis of sexual preference. Our young Swazis continue to be arrested for symbol expressing an idea that is not favored by the state. Our young people continue to be exploited by the multinational companies and industries. Our young Swazis continue to sell their bodies so they can buy their families a loaf of bread. So I believe that it illustrates the magnitudes that our people, our young people are facing. As I'm speaking to you right now, comrade Jos and other comrades here, 50%, 55% of the young people who passed Form 5 last year, which is an exam entry to university, they've been denied scholarships. Some of them they've been forced to give up the opportunity to study so that they can be better citizens tomorrow. So the situation here in Swaziland, it is very disturbing. So each and every day, our young people are committing suicide. Recently on Sunday, we received the information that a young man committed suicide after his relative who promised to find studies in university failed to come through. So our people are struggling in a way that this monarchy, it uses that so that other young people can be afraid and not be active in the struggle. So our young people, they have no future under the current evil regime. So I loved what the president said earlier while he was making his opening remarks. It is for that reason that our young people have no choice but use every available resource to overthrow this regime. So it is disturbing that when our people begin to use every necessary avenue to advance the serious call for a democratic Swaziland, it is where you will hear the likes of SADC, where you will hear the likes of African Union trying to intervene and coming broad to the issue in the region of what is happening here in Swaziland. It is also very disturbing that other forces or other organizations within the region, they will just issue statements each and every time when we expose the ills that are happening in the country, when our people are being butchered in hospitals, when our people are being butchered, when they take it to the street. It is for that reason that I concur with the words of the president that in October, when the week of rage comes by, we as young people are going to take it to the streets. We are going to use every available avenue so that we can have a democratic Swaziland. In conclusion, Comrade Njose, it is important that we bring it to the light of the session that we have a lot of young people who are in exile as I speak. And recently, other young people, they were profiled in the papers or in the papers or internet of the Swatini Royal Police Service, saying that our people have been fighting and who have been practically on the ground fighting for democracy, that they are wanted for organized crimes. There's nothing like that. We're proud of our young people. Our young people are defending their country. They want to see Swaziland being democratized. So the struggle in Swaziland, we know that young people, they have a huge role to play in order for Swaziland to be democratized. And our political history has shown us that in every country that is fighting for democracy, the young people should always be in the forefront, particularly students, because they're easily organized. Having said that, democracy is coming into our shores, a democracy is coming in Swaziland. We are going to use everything available to democratize Swaziland, because the most people who are suffering under the current regime, it is young people, because we are a majority. Thank you, Comrade Charles.
Thank you, President. I think it's always encouraging when young people don't lose energy. They believe in the ideals and possibilities of what can be. And of course, we are always inspired by your leadership and the ability to help organize and mobilize young people for what can be a Swaziland for everyone, for all Swazis. So thank you for coming. Thank you for shedding more light on the plight of the members of parliament who are facing a combined 68 years in prison. Also highlighting the plight of the young people. We know, we have followed stories of young people that are committing suicide on campuses, that are committing suicide in communities. And I think that a few researches have been done on how dire that situation is. And these are things that we don't take as seriously when we are in the space where we're fighting for democracy, because we think they are natural phenomena, but they are not. People are committing suicide because of the challenges they are facing on a day-to-day that are directly linked to how the king and the entire regime have run the societies of Swaziland. So thank you for bringing to the fore those issues, and hopefully we can all work to assist you as you prosecute the struggle. I want to move to my last speaker today, Comrade Mary. We know that you have been not just at the center of fighting for democratic Swaziland from the trenches as an activist, but also as a serious lawyer who has been working together with many other legal practitioners to fight for the space, respect for human rights, protection for human rights, but demanding accountability where human rights have been violated. But more importantly, you have been one of the leading voices together with President Makanya, the late Tulani, to put the Swaziland case on the international scene, to put it in our ears in the region, articulately so, and to give clear asks of what can be done. And I know that you have been at the center of the multi-stakeholders forum since its formation and since the massacre. It would be good to hear your thoughts on this dialogue, but also to touch on some of the things that comrades might have not put on the table that would help not just you informing Swazis on where you are going as leaders of the mass democratic movement in Swaziland, but also the regional actors that are here, friends, solidarity partners that are working on Swaziland, and on a day-to-day basis, they are trying to find ways of how to be more effective. Please do come in and give us your remarks. And as Comrade Mary is coming in, comrades, the chat box is open. I think those who have questions, in case we don't get to you, we can have them, points that you think would be useful to inform everyone, to help each other to be more effective in the work we are doing. Please use the chat box, but also after Comrade Mary will open up for discussions, a few inputs. Always good to hear from many of you. I see Mebo is here. I see Mam Miriam, as I said, Ambassador Mandisi, always a good thing to hear from you. But yeah, Comrade Mary, do come in and help us unpack this more.
Thank you, Comrade Munjozi. And good morning to all the colleagues and comrades that are participating in this platform in one way or another. As the president was speaking about the struggle and giving us a historical background, he reminded me as well about my own, history with the struggle of Swaziland. Before I was captured by civil and political rights, I was just a simple attorney, just working on the laws of the country, thinking that I live in a country that respects the rule of law, that upholds the rights of its citizens. And then I met the likes of President Makanya and other comrades who were facing persecution by the government. And I began to see the other side of the law, where the law is weaponized against human rights defenders and activists. And as I was thinking as well, I remembered some of the cases that we have handled over the past years. And I remembered some of the attorneys that we have worked with, comrades who were willing to do the work without payment, simply doing the work to seek for accountability, but also trying to use the law as a means of protecting human rights defenders and activists. Comrades like the late Leo Gama, comrades like the late Mandla Mkhwanazi, and of course recently Comrade Thulani Masego, were always central in all the initiatives that lawyers came up with to try to band together, to organize and to provide legal representation to human rights defenders and activists as a collective force. And of course then in June 2021, after the massacre, we had a loose network of lawyers, who responded to the call for legal representation for people that had been arrested, particularly under charges of looting and under charges of the Suppression of Terrorism Act, the Seditions and Subversive Activities Act, and other traffic-related acts, even the Public Order Act. And coincidentally, just this past weekend, that band of lawyers was undergoing a capacity enhancement meeting, where they were meeting with South African counterparts and organizations, civil society organizations that are working on strategic litigation and advocacy around the weaponization of the law, independence of the judiciary, and attacks against lawyers. And this, I want to use this platform to salute our fallen heroes that I've mentioned and others that I may have not mentioned. I want to salute the lawyers that have stood resolutely besides along the sides of the people of Swaziland as their rights have been violated, while facing their own persecution and attacks as well. We know that Comrade Maxwell Nkambule is in South Africa, having left after an attempt on his life, an assassination attempt on his life. We know that other lawyers who were involved in this Bacete case and Mtandeni's case had to leave Swaziland briefly after the assassination of Thulani, because there were threats on their lives and threats to their families as well. So while we may also focus on what is happening with this case and what is happening with other human rights defenders inside the country, it is also always important to take note of those that are standing behind the people of Swaziland and trying to at least give them a semblance of dignity as their rights are being violated, by providing them with the necessary legal representation and the advocacy efforts that go with that. Having said that, I just want to point out something very critical about the case that we are looking at using as advocacy measures that we can highlight specifically from the case. I think the first thing, of course, is the fact that in terms of the law, there is no intention, because to be convicted of any crime whatsoever, whether it doesn't matter whether it's politically motivated or it's just a simple crime, the law states simply that there must have been an intention to commit the crime and there must have been an act to commit the crime. Now, in this instance, when you look at this case of the MPs, there is nowhere where you can actually link them to any crime or intentions, so to speak. I want to speak briefly about what, in terms of international law, when it comes to a terrorist act, there are 3 criteria that have to be met before it can be termed a terrorist act. The first one is the means that is used, the method that you use to commit that crime. It has to be a deadly, you have to use something deadly, or it must be a serious violence. Now, I am yet to see a definition of freedom of expression saying that it constitutes serious violence or is deadly, because that is all the MPs did. All the MPs did was speak on behalf of their constituencies. All the MPs did was to carry forward the call for social justice, and to carry forward the call that says, any law or an unjust law that is meted on the people cannot be carried out by anyone. They only encourage their constituents to stand up for their rights and to freely express themselves. So when you speak about what they were actually found guilty of, it is spoken words, them encouraging constituents to stand up for their rights, them saying that there's freedom of association and assembly in the country, so people must be allowed to protest freely, must be allowed to elect their own prime minister in the way that they see fit. So you then look at whether this conforms to the criteria of a means of deadly force or serious violence. The second one is what I started with, the intent. The intent must be to cause fear amongst the population or the citizens. When the prosecution brought witnesses to court, none of the witnesses, they didn't bring any witness that told them that the utterances by the MPs caused fear in them. The utterances by the MPs caused them to have a reasonable fear that property would be disrupted, or that there was going to be destruction of the public order. There were no witnesses to bring forward for this second criteria, for the intention, to say, did the utterances of the MPs cause fear? Rather, I would say the utterances of the MPs caused fear to the regime because it gave power to the voices of the people. The last one, the criteria, is that the aim must be for a political or ideological goal. While this one may have been, it's a matter of argument that yes, the aim was for political or ideological goal, because the people of Swaziland are calling for democratic changes, the people of Swaziland are calling for social change, the people of Swaziland are calling for social service delivery. That may be a political one, but can it be categorized as a terrorist aim? And therefore, we cannot easily say that no reasonable man can say that it was for a terrorist aim. So the failure by the prosecution to prove these 3 elements means that automatically they cannot have been found guilty of a terrorist act. Likewise, on the murder, the charge on murder, there was no intention. The MPs had no intention of killing anyone. They had no intention of, they did not incite violence against anyone. And therefore, if there is no intention, then the next best thing that they could have been found guilty was culpable homicide, of which is an unintentional killing of somebody. But then again, you look at the fact that they were not even present at the scene of the incidents where these people were killed. They never incited anyone to kill anyone. So how could they be linked to a murder charge, or how could they be linked to the killing of somebody, when the only people that we can bring evidence against in terms of who killed who is the armed forces, because we definitely know that armed forces killed ordinary civilians, citizens of the country, and yet they are not facing any charges of murder. So those are the things that I just wanted to highlight in terms of how they were convicted of what charges and why. But then the other irregularity around this case is that, you know, when you have a charge and the prosecution fears that they do not have strong enough evidence on the charge, they will give you an alternative charge, a lesser charge. For example, if it's not murder, it will be culpable homicide. If it is not assault with intention to cause grievous bodily harm, it will just be assault. But in this instance, what happens is, if you are found guilty of the main charge, definitely the alternative charge falls away because it is of a lesser effect than the main one. But if they failed on the main charge of murder, then you would have expected them to be convicted under the alternative charge. But in this instance, they were found guilty of all charges, main and alternative. That's irregular. That's cause for us to take this case up, not only on appeal, but also on review. And even the sentencing was irregular because when they were sentenced, they were also sentenced according to the convicted charges. So there's so much interference. You can actually see that for us that have practiced before the courts, for us that have appeared before Mamsi before, for us that know her history as a director of public prosecutions at some point, she definitely knows the law. She knows what is expected of her. She knows what happens at conviction and sentencing. There was so much interference that she lost track of the fact that she was now giving an irregular judgment on conviction, which irregular judgment in an independent court could easily be thrown out. So those are some of the dilemmas that we face, where the judiciary is manipulated into giving judgments that are shocking to the ordinary person, but shocking to us as legal practitioners to actually think that such an abnormality could be allowed to, to continue in a country. But it also gives us impetus for our advocacy to say, let us step it up and not just focus on issues, of just the broader call for democracy. Let us use a multi-pronged approach to say, while others are speaking around the civil and political rights, others should conduct advocacy on the independence of the judiciary and independence of lawyers and judges, and look at it from that perspective. Others need to address it in advocating for a constitution that will be people-driven, that will be human rights-driven, that will give full equality to all the people of Swaziland. So those are some of the things that we are looking at and strategizing on how to, approach it from multi-pronged, using different multilateral bodies, ensuring that in the treaties that obtain at the UN level, in every single mechanism, there's definitely something we can find that we can use as a complaint mechanism or under the reporting structures there at the AU level, at SADC level, and so on and so forth. I know many colleagues, we look at the struggle and we want quick returns. But from what the presentation of President Makanya, you can see that this is something that has taken us over 40 years to get to where we are. And it might take another 40 years. I'm not saying it should, but it might take another long period. And it's up for us as human rights defenders and activists to continue piling the pressure and ensuring that the activities for October are not only amplified, but receive the support and solidarity from across the globe, and also to see what else we can leverage on while we are piling pressure inside. We definitely have to pile pressure outside, because one thing our government is very concerned about is their public image. I'll end by saying the public image is so important, such that when it comes to the investigation of Thulani Masego's assassination, they do not have the decency to speak to the family or to speak to Comrade Danele or anyone that's involved in the case to give an update. But we are seeing letters from particularly the Ministry of Foreign Affairs going to other governments, explaining and giving presentation about the progress they are making on the case, whereas they are not bothering to do the same thing with the very same people that are affected by his death. So as long as we continue to paint the country in the true light that they are, and we ostracize them and make sure that they become pariahs in the eyes of the democratic world. I think that's our approach from the international aspect, but also from the local aspect. We have to ensure that we continue piling the pressure inside, demanding our rights, so that it is not seen as interventions from outside the country meant to interfere with the sovereignty of the country. Thank you, Comrade Munjozi.
Thank you, as usual. I think very succinct and to the point. I mean, it's always good to beef our advocacy with evidence and substance, and I think helping us unpack this case even more from a legal point of view is very important, because it exposes the gross abuse of the judiciary by the regime, and it helps find many avenues where people can use as entry points into the Swazi crisis. And also thank you for the last words, the reminder that as we get into these things, as we work on building more democratic and progressive societies, the struggle will take longer than we anticipate, and we should get in there knowing that if we win tomorrow, we celebrate it, but it's likely to take longer than we anticipate, and we should be ready. Our resolve should not shake when that happens. We should continue with vigor and energy to motivate each other, to encourage each other to continue at it. But you also identified a lot of other strategies that people can use, which I think are useful for those that are inside Swaziland, in terms of just informing, talking to people about the situation, but more importantly, find every other platform that has mechanisms at international level. Unfortunately, Mugabe did us one by disbanding the SADC tribunal. So we have to find other platforms, other mechanisms that we can use to try and force the king's hand on many of the violations that are taking place. Also keeping on reminding us of the people that are having to leave Swaziland, whether briefly or for prolonged periods, because the king is on their case, or the regime is on their case, and that there's been no shame in attacking and in some cases killing those that are demanding for freedom in Swaziland, and also that the governments around Swaziland, the citizens of the region, might have to speak more and ask more of the Swaziland leadership, even as they expect of their own leadership. But thank you for the remarks. I know that we are supposed to have the current president of the Swaziland National Union of Students, Comrade Gabi Ndukuya. Unfortunately, she's struggling with network, so she will not be able to join us, but we are sure that we will have her in the next platforms. It's always important to hear young voices, particularly from the students, because they are essentially the vanguard of the struggle and many of the issues in our societies. I want to quickly move to Comrade Miriam to react, respond, ask questions, and then move to Comrade Lwazi. If I have other hands, please let me know. We want to do that and go back to the speakers in 1 minute, and get to close. We don't want to go over time. Of course, we are already almost over time. Comrade Miriam, please do come in.
Thank you, Comrade Munjozi, and greetings to everyone. I just want to start by commending all the speakers, from the president to the comrade who spoke on the issues of women, specifically rural women, the youth, and the last speaker Comrade Mary. All of you comrades were able to clearly paint once again the picture of the crisis in Swaziland and the trials and tribulations of the political activists. You have been able to just do that and remind us of what we, both as individuals or as the collective in the region and in the continent and internationally, we should be doing in support of the people of Swaziland. And I must say that I feel guilty as an ANC member for one, but also as one who was forced into exile at a very early age of 16 years to fight for my country, South Africa. You have been able to evoke in my memory the importance of international solidarity, and to be serious about providing such support, especially in our region. So I'm saying to you, if I didn't hear you previously, I've heard you loud and clear. And it saddens me, as you rightfully indicated, the one who spoke on behalf of the women, on behalf of the youth, that those are the ones that suffer the most in any situation of instability and gross violations of human rights. I'm not in the NEC of the African National Congress, but I will once again put forward to the leadership. I know they'll be sitting in Lekgotla. Just the day before yesterday, I was talking to the DSG about the program of action on international solidarity and campaigns. And one of the issues that I will raise sharply is our action. I mean, our implementation of the resolution on Swaziland. And I didn't hear you talking about the dialogue issue. I would want you, in your second bite, just to indicate how far is that process and what could be the impediment. So I'm committing in this meeting that I will, as I said, as a member of the African National Congress, raise these issues sharply so that it features in the NEC Lekgotla's agenda, the solidarity with the people of Swaziland, but also how far are we with the implementation of the resolutions that we took in the many conferences that we held as an African National Congress. I just want to thank you profusely for highlighting the plight of the political activists and the people of Swaziland. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Miriam. I think when we hear commitments and the desire from you and many others in the organization, it helps. It gives us some hope. And I would want to hear more at some point. I think we'll have a discussion on what opportunities lie in this government of national unity. I think yourself, Ambassador Mandisi, and many others, to just hear your thoughts on how the comrades in Swaziland can utilize where we are, but also whether the ANC and many other organizations, things have changed, if that's correct, or we could still continue to do what we did with more energy. And yeah, so I hope that we have a discussion where we just focus on that, not just for Swaziland, but for many other parts of the region where the voice of South Africa, or South Africa's voice, will continue to be important and critical in changing those people's circumstances. Comrade Lwazi, briefly. Comrade Nganyiso, briefly.
Thank you so much, Comrade Munjodzi. And I'd like to thank the comrade panelists that spoke before me. And my heart bleeds for the people of Swaziland, especially under the current of the monarch, and what is currently being done on people simply trying to live their lives. We as a region need to be very conscious of what is happening in Swaziland and not be sidetracked by other issues. However, the issue of Swaziland should remain on our agenda on a day-to-day basis. Comrade Mujoz, I'd like to touch on two things. The first one is this current status quo of the solidarity movement. And we have seen within both South Africa and in Zimbabwe, by the way, the weakening of the trade union movement, which is a very unfortunate situation, and which has added to the weakening of the broader solidarity movement. What we see in organizations such as COSATU and the broader trade union movement within South Africa, they have around 9% worker penetration in terms of its membership. And what we see is a lessening of solidarity efforts by the traditional trade union movement, which is an issue of concern. And also you see the same situation happening even within South Africa's student movement and within the youth organizations as they've been encapsulated with the broader national politics. So now we are faced with a perpetual crisis where the traditional allies are engulfed with their own issues, whilst the people of Swaziland continue to suffer. On a regional level, what we see is state actors, whilst there have been shifts in governments at a regional level, there's been a lack of consequence management protocols within the regional architecture of SADC, which has resulted states in operating with impunity, where we've seen in Zimbabwe, for example, the closing of the democratic space, and in Swaziland now, with these arbitrary assassinations and killings and arbitrary arrests, there hasn't been a supranational governance body that brings legitimacy or highlights the voices of the people of our region, which presents us with a very gloomy picture for this region. However, there are some green shoots. There are people still mobilizing. There are people still keeping Swaziland, talking about Swaziland and keeping on the agenda. But my fundamental question is, how do we now revive the broader regional solidarity movement, fully recognizing these weaknesses at both at the regional and national levels within this region? And how do we now galvanize the population? Because it is very easy to mobilize around issues around Russia, Ukraine, or issues around Palestine, issues around, but it's very difficult mobilizing on issues around Swaziland, the DRC, and other situations where the human rights are violated. So how do we find that consensus? And I think that's the type of discussion we should have in the future about even the solidarity efforts we bring about within this region, and how do we rebuild those networks, and how do we rebuild a more grassroots-led initiative that will support the people of Swaziland, that will create safe houses for when they're in danger, that will create tangible solidarity efforts. Thank you so much, Munjozi, and thank you, Sailor, for creating this platform and for keeping Swaziland not only on our minds, but on the public agenda. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I think very critical questions, and I know that comrades who are working on solidarity in the region have taken note, but also these are important questions that I think will come up in many of the coming dialogues here at CELO, and thank you for just putting them on the table. I think very important to engage with those questions. I want to have two last speakers, Nganyiso and Velapi, to just come in briefly, unless if we get another burning input, but Nganyiso, do come in.
Thank you, Comrade. Thank you. I'll be quite short. It's Nganyiso from Amnesty International. As always, Amnesty calls on for the democratization of Swaziland. Comrade Mary, we keep on missing each other, and so I thought I'd use this moment to put these particular questions to you. The first is, the role of the international human rights movement and international international community, if you can put it like that, in guiding the strategy for justice and accountability in Swaziland, or participating really in a coordinated strategy for justice and accountability. Where do you see the international human rights movement positioning itself? The second question is, what is your reading on the status and the context of the multi-stakeholder forum and where it finds itself? I was so glad to hear contributions from Usisibelihle, and brings me to my last question on who are the people that you regard have been left behind, and how do we wage, effective solidarity with them and their particular causes? That's it from me. Thank you so much, comrades.
Thanks, Comrade Nganyiso. Very useful questions, and I'm sure the comrades will do justice. Comrade Velapi.
Thank you very much, Comrade Mujozi, and all colleagues on the call. I want to quickly appreciate the opportunity and the inputs by our colleagues and our comrades. I want to say three things. The first is that I think in the last SALO meeting, we had similar inputs around these issues in Swaziland, but one doesn't get the sense that there are practical steps that we then take after these meetings. Comrade Munjozi will remember, for example, that one of the things that we asked for in the last meeting was practical support for the people who have come into exile, for the people who are in prison back in Swaziland, in terms of supporting legal costs and also supporting some of the needs that they have as they are languishing in prison waiting for their trials. And we haven't seen any movement in that regard. And I would like to remake this request once again that one of the practical measures of solidarity, Comrade Miriam, for example, as you go and engage with the ANC, is this question of giving and granting papers or asylum to the many comrades that are hiding here in South Africa. That's very one low-hanging fruit that I think we can catalyze on. As Tolani has explained, and the president, that some of these comrades have been listed by the Swazi police as being wanted for organized crimes, which is really just some kind of euphemism for wanting them for terrorism. So they are wanting to find ways to place them on the Interpol list and then go after them here in South Africa. So it will be very useful to provide some kind of protective cover around them so that they are able to be protected as people under asylum here in South Africa. Secondly, I think the question of sanctions, comrades, is something that we really need to move quickly on. And the South African government has a very huge role to play here. We need to move beyond just the border blockades, but also just practical sanctions that are targeted, that can be rolled out in some kind of truncated manner that will make the Swazi regime feel the pinch. For example, if we look at our sugar exports, a bulk of our sugar exports come to South Africa. 90% of our imports are from South Africa. So we need the business sector to really rally around the Swazi cause, because it's clear to us that we will not tolerate the recalcitrant rule of Mswati III. The time for us to be the only country on this continent that is ruled by this kind of ferocious dictatorship is over. And as the president has said, we are going to unleash all means necessary to fight against this injustice And the SADC and other multilateral institutions should not then be surprised when we start to escalate the pressure, because a lot of these Swazis who are in exile want to go back home. They've got families there, they've got a future there, and we have a country also to redesign and lead going forward into a new Swaziland. So, and that's not going to be stopped by Mswati and his family. And then the third point I wanted to speak about is the question of perhaps a practical way of assisting as well is this question of building political parties in Swaziland. We know that for the past 55 years, the political party infrastructure in Swaziland has literally been decimated. It's non-existent. So the political parties that we have, unlike in other spheres on the continent, don't have the power to actually command sufficient means to run a state or to even be in opposition. So there has to be some kind of thinking about what practical exclusive measures can be taken on the question of Swaziland, given the fact that it's a unique case where you have an underdeveloped political party machinery. And therefore, we need to mobilize resources to start institutionalizing them, because political parties are the future in Swaziland. And then the last point, I think, is the request that we made even before to be supported on a Boksburg 2, or like a solidarity convening of all the key stakeholders here in South Africa. We previously, in 2021, we had the Boksburg 1, which was a meeting of all the major players. I think that it's time now for resources to be allocated to help us host the Boksburg 2, where we can reflect on some of these issues and the way forward. And we can also use that platform as a solidarity space in a physical space rather than in a virtual platform like this. Thank you, comrades.
Thanks, Comrade Velapi. I think some very practical things that can be done to move forward. I think that the issues of practical solidarity, especially around those that are arrested in Swaziland, I think it's an issue that we might need to really engage with most of the comrades that are working on the solidarity for Swaziland. I know that the comrades that come here that in need, it might not be very coordinated, but organizations like Amnesty and many other comrades who chip in, but it might not be to the level that we want. So there's always room for improvement. I know Nganyiso might be able to give more light on that, but there are many other comrades that I know. If a comrade comes here from Swaziland, we will always be available where we can be able to assist. But we might need to coordinate it. We might need to be more deliberate in the efforts for those 2 points, and those in prison in Swaziland, I think bail money and all those issues. These are things that I don't think we have to be writing proposals for those things every time. As comrades in the struggle, we should be able, the solidarity movement should be able to chip in with those things, and it just needs coordination. But thanks, Comrade Velapi, for putting that on the table. The issue of sanctions going beyond border blockages, very important, and I think we have more discussions around this to try and see the practicality of implementing it, and to lobby and advocate to as many people as is possible, which is why your last point, I think, is very crucial, that bringing comrades from Swaziland into a physical space maybe first on their own, but secondly, joined by solidarity partners on the next day or the other, and discussing these things in person, working out a plan of action, mapping on actors that might not be on the table that might be needed, but also just redefining our strategies even as we move forward. And I would make that that core together with you that we need to think quicker and seriously about the need for that to happen. But also what happens under repression is that when you are not able to meet physically, time and time again, mistrust creep in. The regime turns people against each other, which is why, in my opinion, comrades have to find time to really be in the same space, connect, network and bond. I think it's the word comrade itself would then have meaning and make sense. So I totally agree with you, comrade, on the Boksburg too. It would be good to think about that. I think there are comrades that are here who are more qualified to help lead in this happening. But thanks for that. I want to quickly move back to the speakers. I see there are a few questions that have been put in the chat, and I hope Comrade Mary, President Makanya, Tebile, and Kolani, you have taken note of that. But of course, before I do that, I want Ambassador Mandisi to briefly just come in.
Thanks, Munjozi, and good day to everyone. Just very briefly before the speakers come in to respond to the issues, I just want to pick up on important issues that have been raised around the importance of international solidarity, as articulated by Comrade Mary, and what she has committed to do in terms of activation and sensitization of the ANC in relation to the issue of Eswatini. The issue raised by Comrade Loazi of keeping the issue of Swaziland alive, I think these are very important issues, and equally the issue around how, as the ANC, as the South African government, we have continued to take very strong positions, in terms of solidarity for Palestine, for Western Sahara, on principle, and how that compares to how we are relating to situations in the region. I just want to perhaps, the president of Pudemo raised a very troubling point in his input. Just that feeling that we are on our own, and I think that that is something that must never. It's something that must poke, the consciences of all of us, for people to feel that they are on their own. And I just want to ask from the president of Pudemo, regarding whether they continue to be in engagement, for example, with the African National Congress, the South African Communist Party, COSATU, and other progressive organizations. And what, if there have been such engagements, what the sense of Pudemo, has been from those engagements for them to feel, that we are on our own. So I just wanted to raise that issue. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Ambassador. I think, as always, very crucial question. I think President Makanya has taken note of that. And maybe before he forgets, let me quickly move to him to respond to the questions I think that were directed, and then in brief your parting shots. President Makanya.
Thank you very much, Comrade Njodzi, and to all speakers who have posed questions. I will start with the one of Ambassador Mpahla and Comrade Miriam, because I think they are interrelated. We continue to engage with the Alliance. the African National Congress, the South African Communist Party, and COSATU. And I want to remind comrades that they will recall, I think it was the 53rd National Conference of the ANC, who had lobbied extensively moving to that conference, that there was a need for Pudemo and the ANC to formalize bilateral relations. And we had deliberately done so because we were concerned that the ANC appears to be a target of the Swazi regime, because everywhere you go, the Swazi regime seems to accuse South Africa as being the one that is instigating what they decide to term as trouble in Swaziland. And we knew that when they accuse South Africa, they indirectly accusing the African National Congress in the main and the alliance. So we are not blind to the heavy political penalty that the ANC has paid and continues to pay as far as that regime is concerned in terms of accusing it, not only of harboring us in South Africa who are regarded as terrorists, but of instigating what is happening in Swaziland. We all know that is false. And we think that it was a missed opportunity, Comrade Miriam, that while you were in the NEC and in that subcommittee, we never got to finalize that conference resolution. But I don't think that the successive conferences have reversed necessarily that resolution. And we appeal that we do so. We appeal that we do so for two reasons. One, because I think that at times there is consternation in the ANC that feels like Pudemo is no longer actively pursuing the ANC, but rather shifting to the economic freedom fighters, for instance. And I think one would want to briefly use this opportunity to clarify this misconception and appeal to Comrade Miriam in her engagement with the DSG to bring this issue, that we continue to request for a formal meeting with the African National Congress. And we have written a number of letters requesting same that sadly have not been responded to thus far. You know, one of the things that we have always been mindful of is that the ANC, being the governing party in South Africa, there are certain things they can do, there are certain things they cannot do. And in consulting with comrades who are in the African National Congress and the Alliance, we have always been advised that you must appeal for solidarity across sections of South African society to make sure that the things that we cannot do, others are able to do, for instance. I don't think, for instance, that the ANC would be able to stage a blockade between the two borders. But we know that COSATU and the party have been doing that for a long time, and the EFF has done so. Now, but also, if you look closely, the EFF is constituted by those who were in the ANC Youth League that we interacted with in the course of interacting with the African National Congress project. And one of the things that used to happen at the time, I would remember, there was a very impactful cultural boycott that was championed by the Youth League, COSATU, and the party, where South African artists boycotted performing in Swaziland, and even some soccer teams had to pull out. Now, we don't think that our appeal for solidarity from those who declare to be in solidarity with the people of Swaziland, especially because there are no conditions attached, should be misinterpreted as a shift from our principal allies in South Africa, which remains the alliance. And even in our engagement, I want to assure comrades here with the EFF, one of the things that they always openly say is that for your things to meaningfully move in Swaziland, it will take the ANC. But that does not mean that we shouldn't appeal for solidarity from everyone who's willing to offer solidarity to you. and particularly who's willing to give you platform, because at the end of the day, it is the ordinary members of this political formation who must internalize the same way that I believe that ordinary members of the African National Congress have internalized the need for solidarity, rightfully so, with Western Sahara, Cuba, Palestine, Venezuela, and you name it. So at times what we ask for from the ANC, which sadly has not been provided, are mere platforms in gatherings of the ANC so that we can be able to explain to ordinary members of the ANC of what is the essence of the Swazi struggle. Having said that, please allow me, Comrade George, very briefly to touch on the issue of the dialogue that Comrade Miriam spoke to. You know, over the years, we have been very consistent of Pudemo and as the mass democratic movement that we foresee this thing of dialogue as a process that must entail broadly 3 stages. The first stage is what we term as dialogue for talks. The second stage is the talks to negotiations. And the third stage being to negotiations to democracy. So when we call for dialogue, we were calling for dialogue amongst all the protected forces so that we can agree on the need to engage on talks about what is the problem in our country. Now, we were able to present what we believe was a very compelling argument with SADC, because when we ultimately saw the terms of reference and the recommendation that SADC had made to the government of Swaziland, they were very, very much inclusive of the things we had said. But what did the king do? The king, instead, after elections, he summoned Sibaya, where people just went there without any idea what is going to be the agenda. And after almost 10 days of sitting there in the scorching sun and rain, the king simply said dialogue has taken place. And that is not the dialogue that we have always called for as Pudemo and the mass democratic movement. And we think that it is this vulgarization of the term and the concept dialogue that is at the heart of the problem. I end by imploring Comrade Miriam to indeed, on our behalf, continue to reach out to the DSG and the leadership, that we remain desirous of a meeting where we are going to be able to present our case, but also how we think the African National Congress and the Alliance broadly can assist in this regard, even if it's off-the-record meeting, because of issues of diplomatic relations and the other variety of sensitivities that may be there. It is our wishes, Pudemo, that we could have that platform, because we are concerned that gradually the space is being closed down, and the issue of us appearing in other platforms seems to be elevated to imply that we have changed course in terms of who are our principal allies in South Africa. We've never been confused about that. We've always appreciated the solidarity, very firm solidarity that we have received and continue to receive from the alliance, particularly the South African Communist Party and COSATU, mindful of the constraints that the African National Congress as a ruling party has. Thank you very much, comrades.
Thank you, President, for bringing that up and for just being able to come to this platform and articulating the case for the people of Swaziland. So important for you, but also for us in the solidarity movement. Tebile, can you quickly come in very briefly?
Thank you so much, comrade, and thank you so much, everyone, for your input. Maybe my last word will be to say, as the rural women, we will not be broken by such barbaric judgments. We actually are trying to instill fear to any dissenting voice. as women will still continue to mobilize ourselves and organize ourselves regardless of these challenges. We know that until victory is achieved, rural women will always stand up for any injustices happening, which among other things are land grabbing, collapse of the health system, where now women are unable to access their reproductive health services. Lastly, for us, we are calling to all Swazi people that there is no Messiah that will come from heaven to free us. But we need to free ourselves and be part of all action happening in the country. On the international community, it is not enough, but you can make it better. Intervene before more blood is spilled. To launch a free all political prisoner campaign to put pressure on the dictatorship government. That would be very much appreciated. Amandla.
Thank you, Comrade Amandla. President Kolani, are you still in? Just briefly.
No, thank you so much, my leader. Under the current setup, as the young people of this land, Swaziland, we have suffered enough. We have lost our parents. We have lost our brothers and sisters. We are being denied scholarship. We have no access to health, to healthy. We are forced to leave our country and live in exile. We are forced, as I'm speaking to you, we are forced to retaliate with nothing else but violence, because we cannot keep speaking a language of peace to a government that is responding with violence each and every time it gets an opportunity on us. As the week of rage approaches in October, we are going to show how angry we are as young people. And the message to the international community is that we will appreciate if there will be practical action that will support our campaign towards democratizing Swaziland. And we'll appreciate that the action must be beyond condemning and statements. We have suffered enough as the people of Swaziland. And as Comrade Debele just said, we know that as young people, the act of liberating this country will be the act of the people themselves. There's no Messiah. As I'm closing, I love what President Makhanya is always saying. President Makhanya is always saying, if our efforts cannot liberate us, or they are not enough to liberate us, our blood shall liberate us, or our blood shall speak for us. So we'll do everything within our power to liberate ourselves. And structures such as the African Union, such as the European Union, SADC, we have tried enough to highlight the plight of the people of Swaziland, but they have done nothing. And we are hoping that when we take it to another level, they will not be there just to speak or to warn us, because we're going to take an offense or as a moral or as a mockery. Otherwise, as I'm speaking to you, Comrade Njozi, I'm fighting back tears, looking at how this current system of government led by King Mswati, it has destroyed our country. Our country is a mockery. Our country has no future. Our people are suffering. Our people are dying of hunger. Our people are dying because they have no access to health. Our young people, they have no access to education. We have no duty, as Comrade Velapi, the Treasurer General of Podemo just said, we have a duty to recognize, to build our country, to reorganize our country, because as I speak to you, our country is a total mess. We will not give up, and we know for a fact that there's nothing and there's no one that can stop an idea whose time has come. And I'm being honest to you, Comrade Njozi, there's nothing that will liberate us besides violence. Amandla.
Thank you, Comrade Kolani. I think the young people have to be agitated. The future is belongs to you more than to many of us who are older. I think that there has to be a clear plan from young people on how you are going to make the situation better, give opportunities to those that are of your age. And we wish you strength and all the best in your efforts to liberate yourself. And I think that the Solidarity Movement will always stand with the people of Swaziland. So thank you for coming and thank you for the inputs. I want to give the last word to Comrade Mary, just briefly.
Thank you, Comrade Mujodzi. Kanyiso had quite a number of questions for me, but I hope that with the president's response, some of those questions were attended to. But the international organizations providing solidarity and support for the struggle of Swaziland, all we can say is we request that you continue with that support, step it up, put the Swaziland issue on the table at platforms where we are not, continue with the advocacy that you are doing. But just to stress that I think, there are so many opportunities and so much that can be done. So we would need to have a better coordination strategy because sometimes it feels like while there's a lot of work that is being done, we are still operating in some kind of silos. So it's important that the solidarity that is being provided also is guided by the voices inside Swaziland. So always make sure you touch base with human rights defenders in the country or organizations in the country that can give impetus to your work, particularly in this day and age of disinformation and misinformation. Sometimes we find that, with what's going on around the issue of Swaziland is not taken seriously because of some conflicting narratives that may be coming out of the country, with the recognition, of course, that the regime has good propaganda machinery going. So, just to make sure we counter the disinformation and misinformation, it's important to always touch base with comrades inside the country. For those that are being left behind, I think the mere presence of women and youth in this platform right now is an attempt to make sure that no one is left behind. But of course, we've got other marginalized and more vulnerable groups that are excluded from certain platforms, not intentionally, but because of dynamics that exist there. And we know that, organizations like the Multi-Stakeholder Forum, political parties, other civil society organizations have been attempting to be as inclusive and diverse as possible to ensure that no one is left behind. But it also needs a lot of intentional and deliberate work to ensure that we not only include them, but we make sure that they feel like they belong where they can also give an input. On the last one is, again, from Kanyiso on the chat, talking about the Interparliamentary Union. Look, Swaziland is a member of many of these Pan-African Parliamentary Union Forum, and there's the SADC Parliamentary Forum. There's so many things where we can not only get those bodies to issue statements, but also we need to begin lobbying for their exclusion. When Velapi speaks about sanctions, we should not only speak about sanctions targeted in specifically to the royal family and government officials. We must push for the suspension of our participation in some of these bodies. If we're not upholding human rights, which we're obligated to do in terms of the treaties that we have signed on to, then we should be suspended until we rectify our record. So I think that's one of the things that we can begin doing, apart from those statements, Kanyiso. The last one, yes, when it comes to the African Commission on Human and People's Rights, I think it's important to continue with the advocacy there. I don't know, many colleagues seem not to be aware that the resolution in the April-May session in 2023, this is last year, in the Gambia, we managed to get a resolution from the African Commission on the situation of Swaziland, which included independent investigation, not only into the killing of Thulani Masego, but also an independent investigation to the killing of civilians during the 2021 uprising, and other issues that we brought forward. But also one of the resolutions was the immediate release of the MPs. At the time, they were still facing they were still undergoing their trial. So it would be for us to come and look at that resolution and strategize on what the way forward would be. So because there is a resolution, we have a good leg to stand on to actually file a complaint without having to wait for the appeal that may or may not be lodged on their behalf. Yeah, thank you very much, Comrade Mujozi, and thank you for always providing a platform for us to speak about our issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Comrade Mary, for coming, but also for enlightening us on the situation and, as always, giving us practical alternatives of what can be done. I want to quickly bring in Sismoli to give us a vote of thanks. And I think from me, just to say thank you so much for coming, all of you. Thank you to the speakers. Let's continue to talk. Let's continue to be practical. Let's continue to do the little things that we are already doing, but maybe finding ways of connecting some of the efforts, collaborating on some of these things, and take initiative. But we continue to stand with the people of Swaziland as they seek freedom and democracy. Sismoli, are you in?
Yes, Mujozi, thank you very much. Oh, am I?
Yeah, go ahead. You're audible.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, Mujozi, because of time, I won't say much. Because of time, because we have now exceeded 12 o'clock. But this is just to, just to say thank you to our esteemed speakers, President Mary Cebile Gavi Kokolani, and just to say, we at this time were also reminded of what South Africa went through during its era of liberation. And I know that maybe most of us were not born then, or those that were born were much younger. They were young people at the time, in the 60s. Recently there was a film that was playing in the Johannesburg theaters and other theaters about the liberation struggle and how the ANC was in a lull in the 60s, or rather even, all the liberation movements, considering the banning of political parties at the time. And we do see that, this is where Swaziland or Eswatini finds itself at this point. Especially, this would be the feeling that many comrades would have, to say there was something that happened a few years ago, which almost took the liberation struggle, or even the democratization project to new heights. And we all know that there was an anticlimax somewhat at the end, because there were many things that came up and blocked this dialogue from happening. And even how this dialogue was going to take place was also an issue, because comrades were not happy with how it should be run, because comrades preferred even a third party from another country, preferably to be the one overseeing the dialogue. So I just want to say, as I'm thanking everyone, as I'm thanking our comrades, and as I'm thanking Selo and thanking the comrades that are here friends that are here, friends of Eswatini that are here, and partners to say let's continue to keep on keeping on. It might appear that we are in a lull when it comes to what our Swazi comrades want to achieve. But I just want to say, as I thank all of us, that we should not be discouraged, and we should continue, and SELO should continue to bring these issues. And I know we have comrades of the ANC here, of the SACP, of COSATU. So let's continue to raise these issues sharply in discussions, as much as we are doing with other countries. So those would be my words of thanks, Mujozi, and to also thank our partners that continue to support us in these dialogues, the partners of SELO. Thank you very much, Mujozi. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Molly, for those remarks, and thank you to everyone. Please do enjoy what's left of your Friday, and until we meet again in the coming weeks, let's continue to talk, let's continue to be practical, let's continue to find each other, strengthen each other, give each other energy and more solidarity. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mujozi.